Welcome back to Totally Pointless, where we just love to dig into all this political stuff. Today, we're gonna talk about the liberal leadership race. And well, let me tell you, the rules are a little, shall we say, interesting this time around.
Interesting might be one way to put it. I think some folks might use other words depending on their perspective.
Yeah, perspective is a good word for it. Okay, so like picture this. You're 14 years old, right? You're hanging out, maybe worried about that math test next week, and you suddenly decide, hey, I want to pick the next prime minister.
Well, that's not too far off from reality, actually. The age requirement to vote in this thing, it's only 14.
14. You're kidding me, right? Like, I can't even rent a car until I'm 25, but I can pick the leader of the country at 14.
It's true. And get this, they don't even have to be Canadian citizens or permanent residents.
Yeah.
Anyone, anywhere, 14 and up, can have a say.
Hold on. I need to sit down for this. So some teenager in, like, I don't know, Sweden could help decide who runs Canada. This is unbelievable. What were they thinking?
Well, the Liberal Party, they've been pushing this whole open and inclusive thing for a while now.
Open and inclusive, huh? More like open season on Canadian democracy. I mean, come on.
These rules, they actually go back to when Trudeau first became leader back in 2013. They changed the system to get more people involved.
More people, like the
Wow.
entire world. And just to add a cherry on top, they made registration free. Free. It's like they're begging people to mess with this whole thing.
Well, it's certainly attracting attention. Some people say it's great, it gets young people engaged. Others, not so much. They're worried about, well, all sorts of things.
Like maybe foreign countries trying to sway the vote. I mean, we've got a whole inquiry going on right now about foreign interference in our elections.
Yeah.
What if that report comes out and it's like a bombshell?
Yeah, that would be a bit awkward to say the least.
Awkward. It would be a complete disaster. It would be like showing up to a hockey game wearing a Leafs jersey in Montreal.
Okay, maybe not that bad, but yet the timing isn't great.
So, is Canada the only country that does this? I mean, this can't be normal, right? What about the Conservatives? What do? They got to have some rules.
Oh, the Conservatives are much stricter. You need to be a permanent resident to vote in their leadership race. Other parties have different rules, but generally they want you to be a citizen or at least live here.
So the Liberals are like the free-for-all party. Come one, come all, vote for our leader, no ID required. It's mind-boggling.
It's certainly a unique approach. High risk, high reward, I guess.
High risk for Canada, maybe. Okay, so we've got 13-year-olds around the globe picking our next leader, potentially.
This is going to be a wild ride.
Okay, so we've established these rules are unusual, to say the least.
Unusual. I'm pretty sure bonkers is in the dictionary, and it applies here. My niece, right? She's 14, more worried about TikTok than, running the country. And she could vote. It's crazy.
Well, some might argue it's about getting young people engaged, making them feel like their voice matters.
But seriously, shouldn't you have some experience, like actual life experience before you pick the prime minister? Paying taxes, having a job, that sort of thing.
The Liberals would say this is about building good habits early. Get them young, they'll be informed citizens later on, something like that.
Yeah, but what about now? Like right now, with all this talk about foreign interference and fake news and all that, it seems kind of reckless, doesn't it?
There are definitely concerns about that. The critics, they're saying the Liberals are more worried about looking good than about keeping things secure.
Right. It's all progressive and inclusive. But what about protecting our elections from, I don't know, some Russian bot farm pumping out fake votes?
Yeah, there's not a lot stopping that right now. Someone could easily create a ton of fake profiles and boom, they're influencing the race.
Exactly. And it's free, like literally free to sign up and vote. It's a recipe for chaos, I tell you.
Yeah, of course, the Liberals would counter that. They'd say stricter rules would make it harder for some people to participate, folks who might not have all the documents or whatever. Okay, I get that. But come on, there has to be a middle ground. We're not asking for, like, a fingerprint scan, just some basic proof that you're a real person and, vaguely connected to Canada.
There are some tech solutions they could use, like multi-factor authentication or checking IP addresses. That might help weed out some of the fakers.
So the tools are there. The question is, will they actually use them? Or are they so stuck on this open thing that they'll ignore the risks?
Well, there's definitely pressure within the party to do something. Some of their own MPs are speaking out. And then there's that report on foreign interference, the one from Justice Hogue, that's coming out soon.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Imagine if that report is, like, really bad and the Liberals are still letting anyone and everyone vote. The fallout would be, Well, explosive.
Yeah, it wouldn't exactly inspire confidence in their leadership, that's for sure.
You'd be like, I don't know, trying to cross a frozen lake in June. You're just asking for trouble.
Okay, maybe a less dramatic analogy.
Fair enough. But the point is, this whole thing feels incredibly risky. Like they're playing with fire, and not the fun kind you roast marshmallows over.
Let's try to stay optimistic. We're still early in the race. Things could change. Maybe they'll add some safeguards. Who knows?
I hope you're right. Because right now, it feels like we're teetering on the edge of something. Well, unprecedented. Okay, enough doom and gloom. Let's talk about the actual candidates. Assuming Trudeau doesn't, pull a Gandalf and come back from the political wilderness.
Right, assuming that.
Who else is in the running? And how do these crazy rules affect their chances?
Well, there's Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland. Both have pretty impressive resumes. They've worked on the international stage and all that.
But could they actually benefit from these rules? Like, could we end up with a leader who's more popular in, I don't know, London or Tokyo than in, say, Thunder Bay?
It's possible. Without residency requirements, you could have a situation where foreign votes swing the whole thing.
So we could end up with a prime minister who's like the darling of the global elite, but has no idea what Canadians actually want. That's unsettling, to say the least.
It's a sign of the times, I suppose. The world's more connected, and that affects everything, even our elections.
It's like a political thriller, eh? We have no idea what's going to happen next.
Indeed. This leadership race is a prime example of the challenges democracies face today, trying to be open and inclusive while also protecting themselves from, well, all the things we've talked about. It's a tricky balance.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, this has been enlightening, to say the least. We're going to need to take a break and refill our Tim Hortons, I think. We'll be back in a bit to talk about what all this means for the candidates, the Liberal Party, and, well, Canada itself. All right, so we're back, and I got to say, my head's still spinning from all this. Like, are we really going to let this happen? Are teenagers in, like, Timbuktu going to pick our next leader?
Well, it's not quite that simple. I mean, sure, the rules are there, but how many people will actually take advantage of that? It's hard to say.
Okay, but even a handful of votes could make a difference, right? Especially if the race is tight. It'd be like, I don't know, some online influencer telling their followers who to vote for, and suddenly, boom, the whole thing's flipped.
Yeah, that's a possibility. And we can't forget about those bots either. They could wreak havoc in a system like this.
Exactly. It's like opening the door and saying, hey, world, come on in and mess with our elections. We don't mind.
Okay, maybe not that extreme, but yeah, it's definitely a concern. And it all comes down to trust, right? If Canadians think the election's been rigged, well, that's not good for anyone.
You kidding? Imagine explaining that to the world. Oh, yeah, our new prime minister. They were elected by a bunch of 14-year-olds who've never even been to Canada.
It wouldn't exactly project an image of strength and stability, that's for sure. And it could make people even more cynical about politics, which is, the last thing we need.
It feeds right into that whole the system's rigged narrative. And once you start down that road, it's hard to turn back. So, okay, let's play devil's advocate for a minute. Is there anything good about these rules? Besides the whole open and inclusive thing, which, let's face it, sounds a bit hollow at this point.
Well, I guess the argument is that the more people who participate, the better. It reflects the fact that we live in a globalized world, right? What happens in Canada affects other countries and vice versa.
I get that, but shouldn't Canadians have, like, the final say on who runs their own country? I mean, if someone in, say, Australia wants to vote, maybe they should move here first, pay some taxes,
It's a tough one, no doubt. It's about finding that balance between giving everyone a voice and making sure that the people most affected by the outcome have, the most say.
It's a real head-scratcher, and I honestly don't know what the right answer is. I just hope the Liberals figure it out before this whole thing turns into a complete circus.
Me too. They've got to show Canadians and the world that they're taking this seriously.
Yeah, they need to do some serious damage control. Anyway, I think we've covered just about everything on this one.
It's been quite the deep dive, that's for sure.
It has, and I think we've all learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate the power of crazy in Canadian politics. But on a serious note, this stuff matters. It affects all of us, whether we like it or not. So stay informed, stay engaged, and don't be afraid to speak up. Thanks for joining us on Totally Pointless. We'll see you next time for another, hopefully less mind-boggling deep dive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, all that good stuff. Until next time.